Arsenal ended the 2018-19 season in the most heartbreaking fashion. A string of poor performances at home versus the likes of Crystal Palace and Brighton meant that the Gunners finished the season in 5th place, 1 point behind arch-rivals Spurs. And to make matters worse, Arsenal were handed a 4-1 drubbing in the Europa League final in Baku versus Chelsea, which meant that they had to go another season without Champions League football. As the summer transfer window opened, various tabloids stated that the lack of Champions League football meant that Arsenal were going to have a transfer budget of a measly £45 million. This rattled fans as the club needed to strengthen in multiple positions. The pre-season tour also got off to the worst possible start, with club captain Laurent Koscielny refusing to travel with the team, which led to him being stripped of the captaincy and sold off to Bordeaux. Nevertheless, as the summer continued, a sense of optimism crept into the Emirates, as it was evident that the transfer budget was much more than the original 45 million that was reported. Arsenal's summer signing started off with the capture of the Brazilian Gabriel Martinelli from Ituano for £6 million. In late July, Arsenal beat Tottenham to sign William Saliba for a fee of £27 million from St Etienne, and also signed Dani Ceballos on a 1-year loan from Real Madrid. The big money signing that everyone waited for came in early August when Arsenal smashed their record fee to sign Ivorian winger Nicolas Pepe from Lille for £72 million. This was backed up on deadline day, where Arsenal bolstered their defence by signing left-back Kieran Tierney from Celtic for £25 million and poached David Luiz from Chelsea for a reported fee of £8 million. With Emery getting a season's worth of experience under his belt and the club having a successful transfer window, the season began with new hope. Arsenal's Premier League campaign started with back-to-back wins in August, the first of which was away to Newcastle, where Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang scored the only goal of the game. The latter came in a 2-1 win at home to Burnley, where Dani Ceballos put in one of the standalone performances of the season and controlled the entire game from midfield. Their third match was a stern away trip to Liverpool. Nicolas Pepe made his first start for the club and became the first player in 50 Premier League games to dribble past Virgil van Dijk, but the game ended in a 3-1 loss, resulting in the Gunners' first defeat of the season. September kicked off with the first North London derby of the season at the Emirates. Tottenham got off to a blistering start and snatched a 2-0 lead before goals from Lacazette and Aubameyang helped to secure a 2-2 draw for the Gunners. 1 week later, however, it was Arsenal who threw away a 2-0 lead as they drew 2-2 with Watford. While Arsenal was still getting performances in the early stages of the season, the performances defensively were a concern as they conceded 96 shots in their first 5 league games and a record 31 shots in the game at Vicarage Road. Arsenal's performances in the cup competitions, however, were a cause for celebration as the youngsters thrived in these games. In a 3-0 win away at Eintracht Frankfurt, Bukayo Saka produced an outstanding performance and bagged a goal and an assist. The Gunners then recorded Emery's biggest ever victory with Arsenal in the EFL Cup tie versus Nottingham Forest. Gabriel Martinelli bagged a brace, Reiss Nelson scored his first Arsenal goal, and Holding, Tierney and Bellerin made a return to the side after injury layoffs. Arsenal ended the month with a dull 1-1 draw at Old Trafford, where Aubameyang once again was on the score sheet. Aubameyang scored in each of Arsenal's 4 Premier League games in September, and that helped him to win the Premier League Player of the Month award for September. Arsenal started October on a bright note with an easy home win in the Europa League against Standard Liège, where Martinelli bagged another brace. This was followed by an unconvincing 1-0 win at home to Bournemouth, which pushed Arsenal to 3rd in the table. But as winter approached, grey skies gathered around the Emirates and put a cloud under Emery's tenure at Arsenal. Arsenal's second loss of the season came at Sheffield United, and this defeat was the beginning of the end for Emery. Arsenal even trailed to Vitoria SC at home until the 80th minute before 2 Nicolas Pepe free kicks got them out of jail and secured qualification to the next round of the Europa League. Arsenal then blew a 2-0 lead at Crystal Palace, and deep into that game, the captain, Granit Xhaka, was substituted as the Gunners searched for victory. As he begrudgingly walked off, he was greeted by a ring of boos from an agitated Emirates crowd and responded by swearing at supporters, ripping off his shirt and storming down the tunnel. He was later stripped of the armband, and the entire incident left a sour taste as it was handled poorly by the club's hierarchy. Arsenal blew another lead in the League Cup at Anfield in what was one of the most exciting games of the season that ended in a 5-5 draw with Arsenal losing on penalties. The underwhelming results from the end of October continued into November, the first of which was a 1-1 draw at home to Wolves. Next up was an awful performance away at Victoria SC, where Arsenal managed only one shot on target as the game ended 1-1. This was followed up by a trip to Leicester, where the likes of Jamie Vardy and James Maddison ran riot and secured a 2-0 win for the Foxes. In the following international break, there was major pressure on Arsenal's hierarchy for Emery to be handed the sack. Nevertheless, Emery continued to be on the touchline as Arsenal scraped a 2-2 draw against a struggling Southampton side. The final nail in the coffin was a 2-1 loss at home to Eintracht Frankfurt, which left Arsenal winless throughout the month of November. The very next morning, after the humbling Frankfurt defeat, Arsenal announced the sacking of Unai Emery, and assistant manager and club legend Freddie earned the caretaker role in the interim. Arsenal did not experience the usual manager bounce, however, and started off December with a 2-2 draw away to Norwich, a game where Bernd Leno showed his class and rescued a point for the Gunners. Ljungberg's first victory came a week later at West Ham in a 3-1 win. In it, Pepe scored his first goal from open play. As Christmas approached, the Gunners were humiliated by Manchester City and a Kevin De Bruyne masterclass in a crushing 3-0 defeat at the Emirates. It was just one win in 5 games, and it was clear that Ljungberg was not the answer. And on the 20th of December, Arsenal announced that former player Mikel Arteta was going to be their manager. After retiring in 2016, the Spaniard did his apprenticeship under Guardiola, where he won 7 trophies in 3 years at Manchester City and was finally ready to take the next step with his former club. Arteta's tenure started with a draw on the South Coast versus Bournemouth, and that was followed up by a tough test at home versus Chelsea. Arsenal took the lead via an Aubameyang strike inside 13 minutes, but failed to hold on, and 2 late goals from Chelsea handed Arteta his first defeat as Arsenal manager. Arsenal started 2020 in the best way possible with a comprehensive 2-0 win at home to Manchester United on New Year's Day. They later clawed out an FA Cup third-round win versus Leeds United at home. This victory was followed by 3 consecutive draws in the league, including a hard-fought draw away to Chelsea. Arsenal were down to 10 men for most of the game, but came back from behind twice to draw 2-2. January was rounded off with a 4th-round FA Cup tie versus Bournemouth, where the youngsters impressed yet again. Eddie Nketiah was recalled from his loan at Leeds United as he and Saka got on the score sheet to help Arsenal progress to the next round. Arsenal ended the January transfer window with 2 defensive additions, Pablo Mari from Flamengo and Cedric Soares from Southampton. February started with a goalless draw at Burnley, Arsenal's 4th stalemate in a row in the Premier League. That streak was broken after a 2-week winter break at home to Newcastle. It was a 4-0 thrashing which saw Arsenal's front 3 of Lacazette, Pepe and Aubameyang all get on the score sheet for the first time. The form in the league continued with another victory versus a reinvigorated Everton under Carlo Ancelotti. 4 days later, Arteta was handed his first heartbreak in the Europa League round of 32 tie versus Olympiacos. Arsenal returned from Greece with a 1-0 lead in the first leg. The tie at the Emirates went into extra time with Olympiacos ending 90 minutes with a 1-0 advantage. In the 113th minute, Arsenal's talisman Aubameyang seemingly won it for the Gunners with an astonishing bicycle kick. But ecstasy turned into agony as Olympiacos scored the winner 6 minutes later, and Arsenal crashed out of the Europa League round of 32 with their Champions League's hopes in vain. March started with another FA Cup victory over Portsmouth, sending Arsenal into the quarter-finals where a tie versus Sheffield United awaits. This was backed up by a closely contested 1-0 win at home to West Ham in the league. This was Arsenal's 3rd win on the bounce in the league and 6th in 8 games. It seemed as if Arsenal had turned a corner and an air of optimism had gathered around North London thanks to the fine work of the Spaniard Mikel Arteta. On the 11th of March, Arsenal were due to travel to Manchester City, but a day prior it was announced that Olympiacos owner Evangelos Marinakis, who visited the Emirates, had been in contact with Arsenal players and had contracted the coronavirus. This set off a chain of events that eventually led to the suspension of the league until further notice as the whole world suffered at the hands of the pandemic. 3 months later, we find ourselves back where we started as football returns to the country. Arsenal travelled to Manchester City on June the 17th to restart the Premier League campaign. The Gunners ended the season on an upswing and will look to continue that momentum into the restart as they look to secure a Champions League spot and fight for some silverware in the FA Cup. Well, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching us. And what do you think? How will Arsenal perform now that the season resumes? Where do you think we're going to finish? Leave your comments below, smash that like button if you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe to AFTV. Hit that bell icon and click here to watch some of our latest videos. See you all soon, and let's hope we can finish this season strongly. Football is back.
Back again, yeah?
AFTV will be bringing you comprehensive coverage of every game from now until the end of the season.
Football's #1 narcissist is back.
AFTV, back again.